guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to the Wandering Reader. So like you can tell from the title of this video, I have an announcement. I am going to be reading the Man Booker shortlist for this year. So I'm really excited about it. I did it for the Bailey's Women's Prize this year and I really enjoyed participating in that, reading the shortlist and making videos about what I thought about them. So I thought I would do it with the Man Booker Prize. The longlist was announced last Thursday at midnight. I think that's when it was, and there are 13 books on the long list, so I thought I would talk a little bit about what the books are on there, my sort of initial thoughts on them. The shortlist is going to be announced on the 13th of September, so when that's announced I will get any of the books that I haven't got yet and get started on reading those. So let's jump into what's on the shortlist. The first book on the shortlist is 4321 by Paul Auster. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's, I think, an American author. And I think this is the first book that he's brought out in the last 7 years. It's been a while since he brought out a book. I haven't read anything by this author before. From what I can tell of the premise of this book, this is about a baby that's born, and then we read about how his life could have been in 4 different ways, so hence the title 4321. So it seems to me it's about the idea of possibility and fate and sort of relationship dynamics and that sort of thing. It's quite a chunky book. In fact, I looked at it in Waterstones the other day briefly and thought, wow, that's quite a chunk. I'm not sure whether I'm going to pick that up. But the premise sounds good. It almost reminds me a little bit of Sliding Doors, that kind of idea. So there's that one. The next book on the list is Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. Now, Sebastian Barry has been nominated for the Man Booker twice now, but has never won it. But this particular novel won the Costa Book of the Year award earlier on this year, so it's been getting sort of quite a lot of buzz for that reason. Again, I haven't read anything by Sebastian Barry before, but this seems to be about two men who are, I think they're in a relationship. I've heard Simon from Savage Read talk about this book a little bit on his channel, and a couple of other people as well. And they are soldiers in the American Civil War. So I think partly it's about their relationship and partly it's about sort of what was going on at that particular time and how they got on during as soldiers and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's that one. The next one on the list is called History of Wharves by Emily Fredland. And I think the description of this sounds really, really good. It really kind of piqued my interest. So I read you what it says. It says 14-year-old Linda lives with her parents in an ex-commune beside a lake in the beautiful, austere backwoods of northern Minnesota. The other girls at school call Linda Freak or Commie. Her parents mostly leave her to her own devices, whilst the other inhabitants have grown up and moved on. So when the perfect family, mother, father and their little boy Paul, move into the cabin across the lake, Linda insinuates her way into the family's orbit. She begins to babysit Paul and feels welcome that she finally has a place to belong. Yet something isn't right. Drawn into secrets she doesn't understand, Linda must make a choice. But how can a girl with no real knowledge of the world understand what the consequences will be? I think that sounds really good. I love the setting that kind of is being described there, and the storyline sounds almost sort of thriller-esque, and the cover I think is beautiful. Next on the list is Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I've read a couple of other of his books before. I've read The Reluctant Fundamentalist and How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. I've got his other book, Moth Smoke, on my shelf, but I haven't got around to reading that yet. I think he's a really great writer. And from what I understand about this book, I've heard quite a few people talk about it on BookTube and having really enjoyed it, is that it's about, I think, a couple or a family who want to immigrate from their home country. So it's sort of a little bit magical realism-esque in the fact that they go through these doors and these doors take them to a new place. So yeah, I think it's a little bit about the idea of displacement and about the idea of the immigrant experience. yeah, and I think that premise kind of sounds really good. Like I said, I've really enjoyed his writing before. Haven't picked this up yet. I think it's just available in hardcover in the UK so far, but really interested in the premise of this one. Next up on the list is Solar Bones by Mike McCormack, and I can't really get much of a feel for what this book is about, so I'm going to read you the summary that I've got in front of me. It says, the bell as, hearing the bell as standing here. Marcus Conway has come a long way to stand in the kitchen of his home and remember the rhythms and routines of his life. Considering with his engineer's mind how things are constructed, bridges, banking systems, marriages, and how they may come apart, Mike McCormack captures with tenderness and feeling in continuous flowing prose a whole life suspended in a single hour. So yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that one, because it doesn't really give too much away, but perhaps with good reason. So there's that. Next up is Reservoir 13 by John McGregor. And this seems to be about a very small village where a girl goes missing, and I think the girl goes missing at the beginning of the book, and the local villagers are called upon to look for her. And it's about, I think from what I can grasp, it's sort of about village life, about kind of the patterns and the rhythms of nature, and the patterns and the rhythms of rural life, I think. So that premise kind of piques my interest a bit. I'm quite interested in that. Hi, it's Lindsay from the future. I realised while I was editing this video that I missed one of the books out. So stupid. So I thought I would film a clip and insert it in this bit here. The book that I missed was a book called Elmet by Fiona Mosley. And I'll just read you the description of this one. Daniel is heading north. He is looking for someone. The simplicity of his early life with Daddy and Kathy has turned sour and fearful. They lived apart in the house that Daddy built for them with his bare hands. They foraged and hunted. When they were younger, Daniel and Kathy had gone to school, but they were not like the other children then, and they were even less like them now. Sometimes Daddy disappeared and would return with a rage in his eyes, but when he was at home, he was at peace. He told them that the little copse in Elmet was theirs alone, but that wasn't true. Local men, greedy and watchful, began to circle like vultures. All the while, the terrible violence in Daddy grew. Atmospheric and unsettling, Elmet is a lyrical commentary on contemporary society and one family's precarious place in it, as well as an exploration of how deep the bond between father and child can go. So it's quite unnerving how they keep referring to the father as Daddy during that description. And what piques my interest about it is that it says, an exciting new voice in fiction, Sally Rooney meets Sarah Perry. Now, I've never read anything by Sally Rooney, but of course people have raved about Sarah Perry's second novel, which I must get around to. So that kind of piques my interest. Yeah, so there's that one. Next up is The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy. I got a copy of this, I think, last week, so this is a spoiler for my August book haul. But she won the Man Booker Prize. Let's have a look. Where is her book? Where is it? Yeah, she won the Man Booker Prize, and it doesn't say what year on here, with her novel The God of Small Things, which I read and studied and wrote my dissertation on whilst in university. And then she hasn't written anything since. And this is her first book in quite some time. And can we just take a look? This is such a beautiful copy. This is an exclusive foils edition of it, and it is signed by her. Amazing. What would have been better is if I'd have actually met her, but you know, maybe one day. Yeah, and again, it's quite. The God of Small Things has quite a complicated plot, so I'm going to read you the inside cover of this one. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness takes us on a journey of many years. The story spooling outwards from the cramped neighbourhoods of Old Delhi into the burgeoning new metropolis and beyond, to the valley of Kashmir and the forests of central India, where war is peace and peace is war, and where from time to time normalcy is declared. Anjum, who used to be Aftab, unrolls a threadbare carpet in a city graveyard that she calls home. A baby appears quite suddenly on a pavement, a little after midnight, in a crib of litter. The enigmatic S. Tilotama is as much of a presence as she is an absence in the lives of the three men who love her. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness is at once an aching love story and a decisive remonstration. It is told in a whisper, in a shout, through tears and sometimes with a laugh. Its heroes are people who have been broken by the world they live in, and then rescued, mended by love and by hope. For this reason they are as steely as they are fragile, and they never surrender. This ravishing, magnificent book reinvents what a novel can do and can be, and it demonstrates on every page the miracle of Arundhati Roy's storytelling gifts. Yeah. It says on the back, how to tell a shattered story by slowly becoming everybody. No, by slowly becoming everything. And she had a very unique style in her novel The God of Small Things, so I'm expecting something a bit sort of out there with this one as well. But this is a bit more of a chunker as well, not quite as big as 4321, but I'm looking forward to reading that definitely. Next up is Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. I've heard quite a lot of people talk about this book and say it's been one of their favourites of the year so far. From what I can glean from the description, it seems to be about Abraham Lincoln and the death of his 11-year-old son Willie, just as the Civil War is starting. So it says the American Civil War rages while President Lincoln's beloved 11-year-old son lies gravely ill. In a matter of days, Willie dies and is laid to rest in a Georgetown cemetery. Newspapers report that a grief-stricken Lincoln returns to the crypt several times alone to hold his boy's body. From this seed of historical truth, George Saunders spins an unforgettable story of familial love and loss that breaks free of realism, entering a thrilling supernatural domain, both hilarious and terrifying. Willie Lincoln finds himself trapped in a transitional realm, called in Tibetan tradition the Bardo, and as ghosts mingle, squabble, gripe and commiserate, and stony tendrils creep towards the boy, a monumental struggle erupts over young Willie's soul. Unfolding over a single night, Lincoln in the Bardo is written with George Saunders' inimitable humour, pathos and grace. He invents an exhilarating new form and is confined as one of the most important and influential writers of his generation. Deploying a theatrical, kaleidoscopic panoply of voices, living and dead, historical and fictional, Lincoln in the Bardo poses a timeless question. How do we live and love when we know that everything we hold dear must end? So I think, again, that sounds absolutely fantastic and definitely something that I'd pick up anyway. Next on the list is a book called Home Fire by Camilla Shamshi, and from what I can gather of the premise of this is about a woman who leaves her home in London to move to America to go to college, and she leaves her brother and her sister behind, and you know, she worries about how they're getting on and things like that. So I think this is going to be a novel about family and about love and sort of about culture and things like that. From what I can gather from it, it seems like it's going to be good. Next up is Autumn by Ali Smith. I've never read anything by Ali Smith before, but people talk about her as being a great writer. And Autumn is the first in a quartet of books that she's writing that are named after the seasons. So I think the next one that she's bringing out is called Winter. And I think that what she's trying to do is encapsulate Britain at this particular moment in time. So I think Autumn has an awful lot to do with Brexit and kind of how people are feeling and the political climate and things like that. So yeah, I don't know, I look at her books and I'm never really drawn to them, so yeah, I don't know about this one. Second from last is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. I've read one other Zadie Smith novel before, which was On Beauty. I read that a good sort of 10 years ago now. and I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was anything sort of spectacular. I think this one is about two sisters and their ambition to be dancers, and it takes place in London, New York and West Africa. And it's about sort of their journey to become dancers and things. That sounds like quite a good premise. Quite like the sound of that. And I've seen it for quite cheap in my local supermarket, and I was sort of umming and ahhing about whether to pick it up. So I would be interested to give her writing another go and see what I think of it. And then lastly on the list is Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. I put this in my July book haul. I had a copy of it on my Kindle for a while, but then it's just recently come out in paperback in the UK. I'll read you what it says on the back. This says, Cora is a slave on a cotton plantation in Georgia, an existence made even more hellish by her status as an outcast among her fellow Africans. And she is approaching womanhood, where greater pain and danger awaits. So when Caesar, a slave recently arrived from Virginia, tells her about the Underground Railroad, Cora takes the momentous decision to accompany him on his escape to the north. In this razor-sharp novel, the Underground Railroad has assumed a physical form, a dilapidated boxcar pulled by a steam locomotive, picking up fugitives wherever it can. Thus begins Cora's perilous journey, as she is pursued by a ruthless slave catcher named Ridgway, obsessed both with Cora and her mother, who eluded him years before. The Underground Railroad is the story of one woman's ferocious will to escape the horrors of bondage, and a shatteringly powerful meditation on history and the unfulfilled promises of the present day. So I've been looking forward to reading this for a while, and this won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2017, and it also recently won the Arthur C. Clarke Award for Science Fiction, which I found a little bit strange. I suppose I wouldn't really class this as science fiction, but I don't know. So yeah, really interested in picking that up quite quickly. So there you go guys, that was my thoughts on the 2017 Man Booker long list. I'm really looking forward to September the 13th when they announce the shortlist, so I can get stuck into reading those 6 books. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the long list, or which books kind of piqued your interest from the ones that I've talked about today. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.